Good evening. Welcome to the College of Arts and Sciences online information session for the humanities, hosted by Professor Mary Grimm and Professor Alan Rocke. I am Lynn Marie Hamill from the Office of Undergraduate Studies, and I will be taking your questions via email to be answered live on air. If you have a question, please send it to summerreghelp@case.edu with the subject line Info Session. If we do not answer your question live, we will follow up with you via email shortly. Now to your hosts, Professor Grimm and Professor Rocke.
Hello, I'm Mary Grimm. I'm in the English department. I teach creative writing, among other things. I wanted to talk a little bit about the humanities and the importance of the humanities in a college education. The humanities get a little of a beating up nowadays. There isn't a clear career track in a lot of people's minds between taking an English course or an art history course and going out and getting a job. So sometimes we have to sell ourselves, I guess, a little bit. I think that people often think of CASE as a science school, a tech school, pre-med, engineering, and those things are all true. But in fact, CASE is and has a long tradition in the humanities and liberal arts since the 19th century, when one half of us was Western Reserve University. So we're not just a science and tech school. We want you to know that. Some things about the humanities that you should know if you don't know already, although you may. One of the things that humanities courses do is they teach you how to, and give you procedures and practices and techniques to learn to think creatively and critically, to reason effectively, to ask questions, important, significant questions, to consider what you have learned, and to write about it. All of these things are really crucial in a lot of different fields. The humanities add to our knowledge of the world, again, a very important thing. Not only are the writing and analytical skills that humanities courses teach important, but also there's a lot of attention paid to questions and issues of ethics, and these things can be very important in particular fields that are not humanities fields. Just as to give you an example, in the field of bioethics. So science is something that is sort of informed and contextualized by humanities courses. Humanities studies also help you to understand the impact that science and technology and medicine have on society, and to understand what future scientific advances are going to do to the society that we live in. The interdisciplinarity of the humanities is also important. It's a good preparation for the world after college. In college, everything is kind of neatly boxed into majors, or at least that's the impression that we have. But when you get out and you have a job, it's likely that your job will kind of have spread out across several different fields. So that interdisciplinarity that humanities teaches is really crucial. The study of humanities is, I think, also essential as the world, which maybe in the 17th century seemed so vast and incompassable, shrinks because of the pervasiveness of information technology. We can, Facebook message with somebody on the other side of the world. We can get a text from somebody hundreds of miles away. We can read someone's article who is, does not speak the same language that we do. Those of us who master the humanities are in many ways prepared for this cross-culturality because of the interdisciplinarity, because of the sort of the more total understanding of the world that humanities courses brings. And this cultural understanding, a mastering of this cross-cultural understanding, will be a really important ingredient to the success of your life after college. One of the questions that you might ask as you approach your college career is how to approach the humanities at CWRU. How do you sort of like find your way between the sometimes bewildering array of courses and disciplines? You may already have decided on a major, and if you have, that's great. If you know what your major is, and maybe you've even thought about your double major and your minor, that's really good. But some people, I think, come in with this kind of unformed idea that they want to do something in humanities and they don't really know what. If you're not sure what major you want, one of the things that you can do is let the general education requirements be your friend. by fulfilling the general ed requirements, you have the opportunity to sample courses in arts and humanities as well as in social sciences and in math and science, to sort of take one here, one there, and feel your way toward some deeper understanding of a subject at the same time that you are ticking off courses that you have to take in order to graduate. You will have the opportunity then to take courses in something that you are interested in, maybe creative writing or Japanese, an art history course, a course on film or Roman civilization, and maybe it will just be a one-shot thing, but maybe it will lead you to something that will say, maybe I want to take a film minor, maybe I want to major in art history. If you are interested in a particular area, maybe you'll want to declare a minor first and not just jump into the major. Usually majors are 30 hours and minors are 15 hours, so you can take some courses toward the minor, and if you decide at some later point that you want to do a major, those courses will they will count toward the major. However, if you've already established an area of interest and you know what you want to major in, it's best to get some of the requirements out for that major out of the way. You don't want to be one of those seniors who is desperately trying to fit in, that crucial required course in the second semester of their senior year so that they'll be able to graduate on time. An advantage of early declaration is that you will have the benefit of the knowledge of your advisor. As soon as you declare a major, you'll have an advisor specific to you in the department that you've chosen, and that advisor has specific and very useful knowledge to you of that field and will be able to guide you in your studies. Another advantage of declaring a major early is that you will come in contact with a group of like-minded students who have the same interests and enthusiasms that you do. That might be just informally in the classroom and after class discussions, but also a lot of the departments and majors have various formal and informal groups. Some of them, for instance, I know English best because English is my department. There's an English Honor Society, the Sigma Tau Delta, and there are like a couple of informal creative writing groups, usually every year. Sort of they come together with students and then they fall apart when students graduate. And I'm sure that this is the same in other departments. I also wanted to, this is a question that comes up so often when people come to talk, I think certainly to the people in the English department, but I think also probably in any humanities department. What do you do with a humanities major? If you're an English major or if you're an art history major, what do you do afterward? For some people, I think there is this expectation that if you are, for instance, an English major, you're going to teach English in college, or you're going to be a writer, and those are the two things that people think of most often. If you are, and that's true, I think, for some of the other humanities departments as well, that you're going to become a historian, if you take history, or you're going to work in a museum if you are an art history major. But in fact, our humanities majors, when they graduate, have very diverse jobs. Some of those jobs don't seem on the surface to have anything to do with the major that they pursued. Or the minors. So I was just going to read a few of those to you to give you an idea of this very great diversity. These are all humanities majors who have graduated in the last 5 to 10 years, I believe. One is the director of a Montessori school. We also have a novelist and freelance editor who's published 2 novels. We have someone who's taught English in China. Someone who took a year-long sabbatical leave between college and graduate school and wrote a book on eating disorders. Somebody who has gone on to a library science program and is still there. Several people, of course, who are in literature programs. Someone who is an executive at the Gap. Someone who is a journalist and then became director of media relations at another college. Someone who was a humanities major, but I believe a double major, and is at Northwestern University starting her PhD program in chemistry. Someone who is vice president of operations at Sovereign Brands, a wine and spirits import. somebody who went into the Army and served his term and then came out to go and take an MFA at Johns Hopkins. Someone who is in the bioethics MA program at CWRU, still here, but we're happy to have him here. Someone who is an ordained minister and working as a hospital chaplain. So you can see that these are not jobs that had, you know, if somebody says, you know, if you want to be a hospital chaplain, you know, what should you do? There is no perhaps prescribed undergraduate path to being a hospital chaplain, but the humanities are a wonderful preparation for this kind of, you know, spiritual and humanistic endeavor. But at the same time, it could lead you to be an executive at the Gap. So there's a lot of room. There's a lot of room for growth and for changing your mind also.
I'm Alan Rocke. I'm chair of history, the history department here, and I'd like to say a few things about the general education program and SAGES in particular, but I'd like first to underline a couple of things that Professor Grimm has spoken about. Mary is a scholar of English. She's chair of the English department. I'm in history, and I think these are two sort of classic fields of the humanities. In fact, the humanities really are built around literary and language studies and historical studies. But I just wanted to explicitly mention that it's much broader than just English and history, and Mary has spoken of some of these various courses that you can take. We have a classics department, an art history department, philosophy department, modern languages, English and history, and these are the classical humanities departments. I just want to underline the fact that they're all very fine departments filled with scholars and teachers, and we are both. We are scholars in our fields and enthusiastic teachers of undergraduates as well as graduate students. We have these all are very fine departments. Whether you choose to major in a humanities department or minor, or simply take some courses, these departments represent choices that you can make across the humanities. As you begin to choose courses for your first semester, you're going to be thinking perhaps about a major, but you also have to worry about satisfying the general education courses. Most universities have general education courses. You have to take so many courses of such types, and I just wanted to quickly go over some of these courses. You'll be signing up for your fall courses starting on July 12th. Generally you sign up for anywhere between 14 and 17 hours typically, and what that translates into is 5 courses. Now some people take 4, some people take 6, but the typical number of courses you sign up for will be 5. Of those, 1 will be the first course that you take in the so-called SAGES sequence, and that course is called First Seminar. So that's something that will be a separate task later on, later in July. So the first thing you'll do is sign up for 4 courses. If you know what major you're going to be taking, then you have some guidance, some very specific guidance in the FYI guide that you've all seen, the first year information guide. There's sample programs there, and you can follow those programs. If you don't know what you're going to major in, that's fine. Many, if not most, students have questions about that. Some have no idea. No problem. You can sign up for a major as early as early November, I think it is, of your first semester, but you're not forced to sign up for a major, really, not even in your first year. you can sign up for a major in your second year as well. As I say, if you have an idea about the major, then you have more guidance. If you don't, you can basically take what you want. You can use the sample programs as kind of a guide. But one of the things you do have to take, and as I say, it's a special task which comes along later in July, is first seminar. And this is the first of the SAGES sequence of courses that you'll be taking. SAGES is a part of the general education requirement at Case Western Reserve. This is a general education seminar. It's lots of discussion around a table, lots of writing, lots of reading. It's intended not so much to learn a body of knowledge as to become more adept at these general tasks of critical thinking, being able to speak well, being able to converse, and have an elevated discussion with your classmates around the table, and being able to write better. So that's the first of the SAGES seminars. In subsequent semesters, you will take 2 more SAGES seminars. These are called university seminars. And so there's 3 in a row, first seminar and then 2 university seminars. After that, typically in your junior year, you take what's called a departmental seminar, and then in your senior year, you take a capstone. These are all the SAGES seminars that you take in this sequence, and they're all limited in enrollment, so they're relatively small classes, they're discussion intensive, they're writing intensive, and I think it's one of the really fine programs that we offer at Case Western Reserve. It really gets you thinking and gets you writing and gets your academic skills honed in a way that other programs maybe aren't so good at. I've taught frequently in this program, and I like it a lot. There are other general education requirements besides this sequence of SAGES seminars that I've described. You have to take physical education, of course. You have to, there's a math requirement. You have to take one of the math courses. This could be statistics. It could also be mathematical logic from the philosophy department. And so on. So there's also a breadth requirement too. It may sound like a lot in the general education program, but a lot of these courses can serve more than one function. So you can double count in many cases. For example, the math requirement, you can use one of those math courses that you had to take in the science breadth requirement. You can double count that for the math requirement. So, or you can pass out of, you can get AP credit for any of these courses, and that satisfies your, that part of the general education requirement. So that's a brief description of what the SAGES program is all about and what the general education requirement or sequence of courses is all about. Let me just add that I think it's important for incoming students to understand that when you arrive on a campus like this with a few thousand other students, sometimes you may feel a little lost. Sometimes you may feel like you need a little guidance. It's very important to ask questions, to ask for help. To make contact, and specifically what I want to say, make contact with your professors. They may seem distant at times. They're standing in front of the class or sitting in front of the class and talking to the whole class. But they want to know you, and they want to get to know you, not just as a student, but as a person, and especially if you're having trouble. But even if you're not, it's very important to have no hesitation to go to office hours for your professors, to talk to them before or after class, because trust me, they want to talk to you. They want to get to know you. So those are just some good hints that I thought would be interesting to say, and that's really all I wanted to say for the moment. Do we have questions?
Okay, thanks, you guys. That was some really great information. We do have some questions coming in, and I do want to remind anyone who's watching that they can send their questions to summerreghelp@case.edu. The first question we have is from Laura, who wants to study French and wants to know how the integrated studies programs works in that program. So just in general, if you can maybe explain the integrated studies program.
Are you talking about IGS?
Yes.
Integrated Graduate Studies.
Correct.
Yeah. This is a program that allows you to major in a subject, and then in your senior year you take additional courses, which are graduate courses, and it enables you to finish a master's degree in the same time that it takes to finish a bachelor's degree. So it's integrated graduate studies. It's a way to quickly conclude a master's in much faster time than would otherwise be possible. And I'm not sure I did mention modern languages. Did I mention modern languages in describing the number of the various departments that are listed in?
And a very important one.
Very important one. I think studying foreign languages is crucial. We don't have a foreign language requirement at Case Western Reserve. You're not forced to take a foreign language, but I think it's extremely important to learn a foreign language in college. So we have a very fine modern languages department, and you can major in 4 different languages. French, as this questioner wanted to know about, for sure. German and Spanish and Japanese, these are all majors. Plus there are minors in other languages as well. Chinese and Arabic and Hebrew and Portuguese, I think. So a wide variety of language courses.
Thank you, guys. We do have a few more questions coming in about foreign languages. I guess specifically talking a little about minors in foreign languages and how easy they may be in adding it on to a major.
Adding it onto another major?
Correct.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Minors are typically, as Mary said, they're roughly 15 hours, sometimes a little more, which is 5 courses. So yes, it's very easy to add a minor in any language. And as I say, the Modern Languages Department has about eight choices. Both majors, all the majors have minors, plus the languages that have minors alone. It's very easy to add a minor. It's very easy to add a minor in any subject, not just languages. It's very easy to add a second major. Majors are typically 10 courses. Sometimes they're 12. That's 30 hours or 33 or 36 hours. Oftentimes, if you place out of certain courses or have AP credit, you can whittle that down a bit.
Also, a lot of the minors are unstructured, relatively unstructured, so that I'm not sure about the language minors, which probably are more structured. But in English, you can take any 15 hours of credit for the minor. And I'm not sure if that's true for all the minors.
In history, you have to take History 112 and 113. That's U.S. Introduction to U.S. History and Introduction to World History. After that, it's your choice for the minor. So they are flexible, and many of our students have not just a major, but an added minor or 2 majors, and some of our students have 3 majors.
Although that's a little crazy.
That is a little crazy. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I just make that point to emphasize the fact that the curriculum is flexible, and students can tailor programs all sorts of different interesting ways.
Great. One more question I think about foreign languages. We have some students who have taken some foreign language in high school and think that they'll be in the O2, either 102 or 202 level this year, but the courses aren't offered in the fall semester. Do you think it's okay to take a semester off from the language and then start again in the spring?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's fine.
Yeah, and I could answer that from the
Sure.
perspective of a student, even though it was a really long time ago. But I took a year off when I was taking French between high school and college, and there was a little catch up. I was a little rusty, but it was not undoable.
Let me also say that I think it's important for many students to have an international experience, and we've always had study abroad options. We are expanding them. We have been expanding them, and I think it's a very attractive option for many, many students. I highly recommend it. And this, of course, fits with foreign language study if you're going to a place that speaks a language other than English. We do have plenty of places where you can do study abroad speaking English in England or Ireland or Australia and so on, but it's also very interesting and very broadening to go to a foreign language, to study abroad in a foreign country where they teach, where they speak a foreign language. So I want to recommend that. There is something that we forgot to do, which is to put on the screen a list of the various humanities departments that we're representing and that we're talking about this evening. With the representatives and contact information for those representatives. So that can go up on your screen, I think.
Okay, they're bringing that up so students can see the information. As they're looking at that, we do have another question about a minor, but it's about a film minor. Can you, Mary, maybe talk a little bit about the film minor and the courses that may be taken for that?
Yes, I would be happy to. The film minor is, although that is not true at every school, here film is in the English department. And we have a very excellent film professor, Robert Spadoni, who teaches many of, although not all of the film courses. The film minor is just like almost all other minors, 15 hours, that is 5 courses. And everyone is required to take English, I think it's 367, which is Intro to Film, and then the other 4 courses can be either the various incarnations of topics in film, which is English 368, and those are really widely varying from Asian cinema to the horror film to films of British post-war British films. There are a few film courses offered in other departments. Modern Languages offers a number of film courses, and there are a few SAGES courses, the university seminars, who do films as well.
I might also mention there is a film society at the Cleveland Institute of Art called Cinematheque, which shows, throughout the year, shows unusual films, foreign films, art films. If you're into film, this is not only a nice thing for students of film, but for the community as a whole. And that also brings up a question or a point that I think we need to emphasize, which is that if you study humanities, any of the humanities subjects at Case Western Reserve, we're in the middle of University Circle, and University Circle has wonderful resources in many of the humanities, especially the arts, but also in history. So we've got, I'm sure most people know this already, but we've got the Cleveland Museum of Art. We've got a new Museum of Modern Art, MoCA, of Contemporary Art, rather. The Cleveland Institute of Art, which is an art school, the Cleveland Institute of Music, which is a music school, Severance Hall, where the Cleveland Orchestra plays, the Western Reserve Historical Society, which is a top-notch history society, and many others.
The Museum of Natural History.
Museum of Natural History, thank you.
They have dinosaurs.
And it's a wonderful place to study humanities. Frankly, it's a wonderful place to be a professor of humanities and have all these resources within a short walk. So that also is something that's very nice about this university.
So we have a question about humanities courses in general. Students are under the impression that humanities courses are really reading and writing intensive. Is that so? And if it is, would you recommend taking more than one in a semester, or do you think they should just kind of wait and spread them out a little bit?
I think they are to some degree reading intensive, although maybe that's not true of everything. Art
like
history,
anything, it varies,
for instance,
but, yeah,
art
ahead.
history probably, there's more visual stuff than there is reading. Although, honestly, maybe I shouldn't be talking for art history. Certainly English courses and probably history courses are also pretty writing and reading intensive. But if you're worried about having too many reading and writing intensive courses, you can take a look at the course descriptions. The course descriptions, like for the English department, certainly often detail like how many papers you're going to be required, maybe even suggest what the reading list is. And if you can't find that information anyplace online, it's perfectly acceptable to email the professor and say, could I take a look at your syllabus? I've had a lot of students do that to me, and I'm very happy to give them my syllabus in advance.
I would say every course at this university is intensive in something. I mean, you're going to have to put in the hours to learn the material. Yeah, I think it is true that that humanities courses tend to be more intensive in reading and writing. Not that there's anything wrong with that. But I would make the general point that when you construct a schedule, and it's fundamentally your option to construct your schedule semester after semester, I think it is a good idea to have a varied semester. So every semester you want some variety. And so I think there is some truth to what the question supposed.
Thanks. Now we have a question, I guess, specifically for a history major. They're wondering, how do they know how many math courses or science courses they need if they're studying history? Are there certain breadth or general education requirements they need to do, and where can they find a list of those?
A list of those is in the first year information guide, the FYI guide, which I think you all have at your disposal. What this questioner is asking is about the breadth courses. If you want to be a history major, you can't just take history, as much as I would like that. You can't just take history courses. You do have to take 2 science courses, two social science courses, so natural science and social science, and a math course. Now, sometimes you can double count these, and sometimes you can pass out of them, but and you have a tremendous variety, tremendous choice of the science course, of the natural science courses, or the social science courses that you have at your disposal. But there is this breadth requirement. You do have to take them, and they're all listed. They're on the web. I don't know if they're all in the FYI guide, but they're available on the Case Western Reserve website.
Also, once you're registered, you'll be able to go into the Student Information System, commonly and affectionately known as SIS, and it will lay out for you under academic requirements in a drop-down menu. It'll tell you what you have done and what you haven't done, so it's very easy to keep track of, both for you and for your advisor.
Yeah, degree progress reports. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Now we have a question for Mary. Marquez is planning on majoring in English and saw something online about graduating with a BA with honors in English. Can you explain what with honors means and what the requirements are to achieve such a thing?
What it means is that you will be listed as graduating with honors in English on your diploma, when you graduate. And the requirements for that are, it's something that you should discuss with your advisor. Really, as soon as you declare your major, you should say, I'm thinking about doing honors, and they'll talk to you about like various courses and so on. But briefly, what it involves is that you take 6 hours more than the requirements for the English major, so that would be 36 hours of English courses, that you are required to have a 3.5 GPA in the major. That is just for the English courses that you're taking. You need to take a course in critical theory. You need to take a language course at the 200 level. And I guess that's it. I was going to go on for some more, but that's it. It's not really all that onerous, but it's something it's good to plan ahead for.
Great, thanks. We have a student who's interested in journalism. Can you maybe talk a bit about the classes that are available?
Yes, there are journalism courses at the 200 and 300 level. Everyone has to take the intro course first. That's Intro to Journalism 204. And then there are various 300 level courses you can sort of branch out into. All of the journalism courses are writing intensive, as they should be, you know, if you're going to be a journalist. There are some topics courses, for instance, a topics course on magazine writing or on science writing, and some are more broadly reporting based. And we also have one really interesting course called Narrative and Media Storytelling, which takes the students out into the community, and the course is associated every semester with a different community institution, and the students, you know, sort of center all of their reporting, which is not only text-based but also video reporting as well on that institution, and then they produce individual projects at the end of the semester. That's taught by Jim Sheeler, who is our Pulitzer Prize-winning professor of journalism. We have two, also Thrudi Umurgar, another wonderful person too.
Great. Now we have a student who is interested in medical school. Would being a humanities major make it harder to get into a medical school?
You know, there's a myth prevalent among some students that in order to make the best presentation when you're done with your undergraduate degree to get into a medical school, you really need to be a chemistry major, or a biology major, or a biochem major. And this is absolutely not true. Medical schools want to see a very good academic record. They want to see very good science courses, the pre-med curriculum that you do have to take. But as for major, they don't care at all. In fact, I understand from people who know this subject very well that medical schools often really like to see a well-rounded student. They like to see a person who studied Sanskrit and, you know, Sanskrit, well, we don't have a Sanskrit major, but you get my point. Philosophy, religion, history, English, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. They want to see a well-rounded student. They want to see good grades. Yes, you'd have to get good grades in the science courses, but you do not have to major in science. Humanities majors are great preparation for medical school. I mean, you go to medical school to learn the material, right? You don't have to pre-learn it in your undergraduate years. You should have breadth. You should sample, as Mary was saying before. The undergraduate years are a great time to exercise your curiosity, to sample this or that you think might be interesting. You know, and even at the beginning of a semester you can do some sampling, because we've got a 2-week period at the beginning of every semester. It's the drop add period where you can sign up for a certain number of courses, and you know, there's some flexibility. You can choose not to take a course that you'd signed up for and add a different course within the first 2 weeks. So my advice for pre-med students or for anybody is really, as I'm just repeating what Mary said a few minutes ago, is to broaden yourself, take some interesting courses, and maybe some courses that you hadn't even thought of taking, but to, you know, to get a variety under your belt.
Some great information wisdom there, Professor Rocke. Now we have a student who is looking at some courses, and they see that they've met through AP requirements, the introductory courses, and they're wondering about taking 300 level courses. Is that advisable? And are there first year students who do that?
I think I'll let Alan also answer this too,
Yeah.
but there are many 300 level courses which are accessible to a freshman. Some of them have the in English here I'm talking about, have the pre or co-requisite of taking the first seminar, which you're going to be taking anyway. But there are a number of English courses which have no prerequisite at all. And I think that's also true in history, right?
Yeah, you can actually take even as an entering freshman, you can take a 300 level history course. They're not listed in the FYI guide because normally freshmen, first year students are supposed to take only 100 or 200 level courses. That's generally the case. But in certain humanities departments, such as English and such as history, you can take any course you like, even a 300 level course. Now I do have to add, that's probably not good advice for certain science or math programs. In fact, it's definitely not good advice because science and math curricula are more hierarchical. You really do need to take, course X before you can take course Y. And that's what a prerequisite means. You need to have that course X under your belt, passing it, before you're allowed to take course Y. And that's why the 100, 200, 300 sequence does make sense for science and math courses and engineering courses. It makes it's not meaningless by any means, but it's less restrictive for many humanities programs.
Great, thank you. We're still getting in some questions, but we can take some more in. So if students have questions, please email them to summerreghelp@case.edu. But we have a question of someone who has been looking at courses, and they're seeing that some courses are listed twice. So I think they're really talking about cross-listed courses. Can you maybe talk about what that is? And if they do take a cross-listed class, can they count it for more than one major or a major and a minor?
And the answer is yes. They can take it. They can take one course and have it double counted for majors in two different departments, or a major in one department and a minor in another. For example, you'll see in the first year guide that we have History 193, the Ancient World, listed. You can take that course, and we also have History 231. Ancient Greece. Now both of those are history courses, but both of those are also classics courses. And in fact, Ancient Greece 231 is the basic course that the classics department wants you to take if you want to become a classics major. You can take either one of those courses, and under either a classics number or a history number, doesn't matter, and have it count for either a history major or a classics major or both.
Great, thank you. So we talked a little bit about preparing for medical school. Now we have prospective attorneys listening, I guess, and they want to know if the humanities prepare you well for law school.
We were just discussing before the videotaping that for some reason a lot of people seem to have the idea that English is the best preparation for a law school because of the amount of writing that you have to do as a law student. However, Alan wants to make it clear that is not necessarily the only major that is a good preparation for law school.
Frankly, I think any humanities major is great preparation for law school. What law school teaches is critical thinking, analytical thinking, and writing. You have to write well to be a good law student as well as a good attorney. And this is the heart of humanities disciplines. I personally would think that majoring in history or majoring in political science would be sort of at the top of my personal list. But English, I think, also would be a great major as preparation for law school. As I say, any good humanities preparation would set you up very well for law school.
As a matter of fact, in the last, say, 5 years, a lot of the English majors who have gone on to law school have been double majors in history or political science.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks. That's great. And I just want to make a plug. I went to law school and I have a BS in biology. So as Professor Rocke said, you can really major in whatever you want. They just want you to do well in whatever you're passionate about as an undergrad and get those basic skills. So really anything that you want to major in will help prepare you for law school. So we do have another question coming in about research. There's a lot of research that happens on campus, and most people think about the bench research is happening over in the science and engineering departments. Can you talk a little bit about what the research is done in the humanities at Case and how students may get involved in that?
I'll go first.
Yeah, I mean, Case Western Reserve is a research university, and that means that every professor that teaches a class, that you sit in that professor's classroom, he or she is doing research, publishing research. So a lot of people think research is kind of synonymous with science or medicine or engineering, but we all do cutting-edge research and publish, journal articles, scholarly articles or books. This is good actually for the undergraduate students, because when you sit in somebody's classroom that what you're hearing, they really know what they're talking about. They are, in fact, usually, national or even world leaders in their field. Everybody does research here, all the professors do research, and oftentimes they can involve their students in research. In the sciences, this is structurally established in very simple ways, because you go into a laboratory and you have the head of the lab, and then you have the postdocs and then graduate students and also undergraduate students. So you've got a kind of a hierarchical system with group research in a laboratory. It's not quite so simple in the humanities. Much of humanistic research is solitary. The professors in a library or writing at their computer, reading books and so on. But there are ways that we do indeed involve our undergraduate students as well as graduate students in research. And one way to find out the options that are available is to just go to what's called the source section of the CWRU website. That's support for undergraduate, support of undergraduate research, UR, and creative endeavor. So that lists all kinds of options, including in the humanities, for undergraduates to get involved with in actual cutting-edge research.
Yeah,
So.
and there are some grants for undergraduates doing research as well. Also, a good way to know about what sort of research faculty members are doing in the humanities is to look at the various department websites, because the faculty, on the faculty page, there will be a list of faculty publications. And just for instance, in the English department, and sorry, I can't talk about the other ones, but I know it so well, in the last 2 years, 5 of our faculty members have published books on very disparate topics on the Renaissance, a novel by one of our novelists, a book on international copyright, and so on. So it's a good way to get to know that. And one more thing about undergraduate research is that the capstone, which Alan mentioned briefly when he was talking about the series of SAGES courses, the capstone course, which is done in the senior year, and is tied to your department, even though it's also fulfills the SAGES requirement, that students have the opportunity to do a research project of their own, and under the supervision of a member or members of the faculty. And that can be a real opportunity for students to do something that they haven't had an opportunity to do, something that maybe didn't quite fit into the classes that they took before. A lot of students really love that.
Students, I was just going to say, students really love that capstone project. This is hands-on, real research, new knowledge, which is being produced by undergraduates.
Great, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about, and it may just be in your respective departments, about the range of research or experience in the departments, or what faculty are studying in history and maybe philosophy and some English, just to give us an overview of the different things that faculty are doing?
Well, Mary mentioned a few things already. Maybe she wants to say a few more, but in the history department, which I know best, we've got 16 regular faculty members, that is tenured or tenure-track faculty members, and each one has his research program going on, publishing articles and books. And so, for example, we've got a historian of China, we've got a historian of Africa, we've got a historian of Germany, we've got a historian of France, early modern France. My own research is in history of science. I published a book last year. 19th century, we have people doing 17th century work, people doing 20th century work. We've got a historian of technology, we've got a historian of medicine, and each of these different areas, and I've Latin America, I haven't named everybody, but each of these different areas represents ongoing, fascinating research. And I can only, repeat what Mary said, is one of the ways to get to know these, the professors that you're taking courses from, or that you might take or might want to take courses from, is go to our websites, the departmental websites, and each faculty member has a page for himself or herself, and you can read about this research. Everybody on the faculty has such a page, and so I think it's interesting reading, if nothing more.
Even for us.
Even for us.
Yeah, in the English department, I might also add that we have people doing scholarly books, a couple of which I mentioned, but we also have our creative writing faculty. We have a poet and 2 fiction writers. And also we have a playwright. And if you're a playwright, the publishing is, you don't get your stuff published in a book necessarily, but your plays are produced. So our playwright has had a number of plays produced over the years.
Great, thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the writing opportunities, the extracurricular writing opportunities that students may get involved with, and if there are any other organizations within your departments?
One obvious thing, of course, is the campus newspaper. A lot of English majors work on the campus newspaper, although it is not restricted by any means to English majors. There just happens to be a sort of an affinity, I guess you could say. The English department also has a literary magazine, the Case Reserve Review. I brought one along as a visual aid. This is the latest issue. There's also the Athenian, which is a humor magazine. I sometimes don't get their humor, but it's very lively. And I don't know, am I missing anything?
No, I think that covers what I know about. But I just want to say that history majors also publish in these same outlets.
Yeah, I mean, none of those are restricted to English majors.
Great, thank you. We have some students who've been very industrious looking at websites, and they've come across the Baker Nord Center. Can you maybe explain a little bit about what that is?
The Baker Nord Center for the Humanities is an arm of the university that promotes humanistic research and teaching across the humanities. So all of the departments that we've talked about, including some of the humanities that are arts related as well, and some of the humanities that are social science related. I mean, history is sometimes categorized as a social science course. And the Baker Nord Center has programs throughout the year. And these programs range from high-level symposia, where you get famous historians or literary figures or philosophers or whatever, giving talks and workshops and so on, to more informal talks. There's, for example, what's called a Works in Progress series that the Baker Nord Center puts on, which are individual faculty members such as Mary or myself presenting work that is in fact in progress, that they haven't finished, that they're still maybe thinking about. And so these are sometimes fascinating presentations because it's not finished, and they're still sort of exploring their way. And
it gives you a chance to see your professors as imperfect people, you know?
Yes, as people who are still working towards a goal, as we all are. We're all in the midst of something, some research as well as teaching, And this often produces fascinating conversations that are good for the person presenting the works in progress paper, but also interesting for everybody else. So that gives you something of an idea of what the Baker Nord Center. I don't know if you wanted to add.
I might just add that they have every year a themed seminar, and the seminar is private to the people who are engaged in it. Those are members of the university, but the seminar has a number of public events that go along with whatever the theme is. And next year the theme is revolution, which they say they're going to interpret very broadly. I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that. And they also have another informal kind of thing, the working groups. I don't know if you've ever been involved in one of those.
I haven't, no.
I'm in one right now called the Pop Culture Working Group, and we're going to have, for instance, we're going to have a series of pop culture events in the fall that will sort of center around genre and genre writing.
Great. That sounds like a great way to get to meet some faculty. But can you maybe give some tips on how students may, as a first year, how to meet faculty, how to approach faculty, and really start making those connections in their first year?
I would say just do it. You know, approach. I love it when students come up to me and say, you know, they have this or that question, or they just want to chat. Students are sometimes too shy, and I made this point before, but I think it's very important. Go to office hours, talk to your professors before or after classes. You can learn a lot. It'll please the professor, I guarantee it. And it's really very important. It's part of your education to be able to make a personal connection. And the one thing I didn't say and should have about first seminar, this first SAGES seminar that you're going to be taking this fall, is a great advantage of this seminar is that the faculty member leading the seminar also is, by rule, your, at least, provisional advisor. That is, he or she is your academic advisor until you choose a major. And what this means is that advisor, that academic advisor, that faculty member gets to know you. And the reason he or she gets to know you is because he or she sees you twice or 3 times a week in class. And so that's one connection that'll be easy for everybody to make, your first year advisor. But then when you choose a major, you'll be assigned a major advisor, a faculty member in that major department. Get to know that person. It's really quite important.
Yeah, I might add too that I think that students sometimes think, oh, my professor is not going to want to talk to me, and you know, they sort of hang back because of that. Maybe it will be empowering to you to remember that it's part of your professor's job to talk to you. That's part of what we're paid to do. So it's not as if that's the only reason. You know, we enjoy it as well. But you know, we're under obligation to you. It's part of our obligation of education. So come and talk to us.
Great, there's some really good tips. We're running out of time, so I just want to give our presenters a few minutes to say any closing remarks that they have before we end for the evening.
Well, I'd just like to say I'm looking forward to seeing everybody on campus in the fall. And you know, just to build on what we were saying about making contact, if any of you who are listening now have any questions that are not being well answered, or just want to come and talk to me, please come up. I'm in Mather House, on the 2nd floor of Mather House. I'd love to see you.
I would agree with that, and I think that we could speak for all of the other chairs and department representatives in humanities as well, that they'll be very pleased to hear from you by email or in person. Yes. You know, just drop by. I think you'll find humanities at Case to be a very welcoming community.
Thank you very much, Professor Grimm and Professor Rocke.